Hi everyone, this is Mr. Zangle. I hope you guys are having a great day. I thought I'd put together this little video just to show you how to go about, give you an example of how code should be documented. All right. And so what I've done is just taken a program that I wrote, and what this is actually written in JavaScript, and it was done for a little Google application that I was writing. But so we don't care too much about the what's actually going on in this program or how the code is written itself, but I did want to show you how we go about commenting it. Now, it just so happens that the double slashes can be used as comments in JavaScript, and so that's a little bit different than what we might do in Java. But again, the whole thing is just to point out to you how things are laid out. So, what I want to have in any of my programs is a header block. All right, and I've set my header block up here. All right, and in that header block I just described basically what the program does. In this case, it's a contact log program that logs students' contacts with their NCBPS teachers. All right, logs the date, student, who was contacted, reason for contact, boom, 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 all that stuff. Then I usually also go through and talk about a little bit about the functions that I'm actually working with. So in this case, I have here written an open function. Okay, and when the actual spreadsheet opens up, that open function is executed and the menu option is added to the Google's menu option bar. And then the real main piece of code here is the build spreadsheet function. And when that executes, you could basically click the correct option off of the menu bar, build sheets called, and the actual sheets are implemented. One of the things that I forgot to mention here is that there are other features that might be added to the menu bar that will be implemented later. So that probably would have been worth adding. Then I have the author, me, Mr. Zangle. The version happens to be version 4.01 of this little application that I've written, and the date that I wrote it, 2004, or August 4th, 2014. Now, so when I have a function, or in our case, a method, all right, I want to go through and document it in a particular kind of way. One of the kinds of things that I should do first is, and anytime I have a function or anytime I have a bracket, like I do here, I usually try to add a comment to that bracket, and then when that bracket closes that block of code, I can then have end, in this case, on open function. And I'll give you some other illustrations of that in a minute. So so that allows me to then sort of make it a little bit easier for either me or someone else who might be supporting this at a later point in time to get the sort of flow of the program, basically the appropriate code blocks, because as we know, things are going to get nested in here, and so I can sort of map these together and make sure that I don't, that I have all the appropriate brackets matching up with each other for any particular program. But I'll show you that again in a minute. Then I go through and talk about what the kinds of things this little function is going to do. First of all, it sets up the menu bar options, and then here's the code for doing that. And then it activates the sheet, and the manage contact log menu is actually built. And boom, that's the code there. And then I end that function. So I do the same kind of thing here for the build sheet function. I have build sheet function because down here at the bottom, I can map to the end build sheet function, and I know my parentheses are mapping correctly. Now, another kind of thing that I want to do, some of these aren't done as well as I'd like. SS, SH are actually poorly used descriptive variable names. But if I get down here, here's some good examples. Last row, last column, num students. All right, those are reasonably row index. All right, those are reasonably descriptive names of variables, and I probably could have done even a little bit better job than that of using variable names that are descriptive. So a row index pretty much tells me or anyone else that he's going to use this in order to index the rows of a particular set of data. All right, let's see if we can find some other examples. Sheet count. Right, obviously is going to be the number of sheets that or the reference into the list of sheets I have, or num sheets. student info, all right, mod count or sheet count here, as opposed to using a variable like I or X or something like that that is pretty much meaningless. Using student count is a pretty descriptive way of being able to use to have a to describe the variables, because then I know student count as a counter, and here I use it again as a reference. All right, so be sure to use good descriptive names. They don't have to be extremely long, all right, or wordy, but make sure that they're give the person who's reading the code, whether it's you later on fixing a bug or someone else who has to maintain it, good descriptive code. All right, or variable names. So then back to the comments themselves. You'll notice here I go through and I talk about each of the different things that I'm doing in the steps. So I clean up the temp space so it just has a list of the new students added. Get the start date. First, delete all the unnecessary columns in the spreadsheet. Sort the students. And you can get a sense that I try to comment, and I always leave a little blank comment, the comment itself, and a little blank afterwards just for neatness, all right, as I'm going through and doing my commenting. All right, so those are the kinds of things I'm sort of expecting to see in your programs as well. Now, here's another example down here. And some of these kinds of things you'll have a better appreciation for as we get a little bit farther along in the course and the programs become a little bit more complex, because we tend then to start nesting things. So here's a for loop, okay, sort of like a do loop or something like that. And notice that I have code nested within that for loop. So for each iteration of this loop, I'll execute all this code. And that's why it's so important to comment it at the end of the loop so that you can match it up to see what's going to go on at the end. So if you build the actual contact log sheets, and you look down here, build the actual contact log sheets, that's where that for loop ends. All right, and that's just a really handy way of being able to take and make sure that these things are nested properly. Here's an if statement within that for loop. If the build sheet, then go ahead and build the sheet. Here's the end of that conditional statement, and then go ahead and build the sheet. All right, and you can see how they match up. All right, and we'll learn about these conditional statements, if then else's, do loops, and things like that over the next several weeks. Again, that's not the purpose of this little video, but I do want you to see how we go through and how I expect you to go through and document the logger type stuff. Things like that are some debugging tools I put in, but you can see here's a for loop and an if statement that's nested within it. All right, okay. The only thing that I don't have here that you probably will have, well, not probably, but you will have, is that at the end of this block of code, when I exit this program doesn't lend itself to this, but when you have output from the particular program, then what you'll end up doing is going down here and adding a series of comments, all right, that has the output from my program. And that way, when I'm grading it, I'll be able to see of course, it'd be nice if I didn't say form and said from. As you guys can tell, I can't type save my life, and spelling's not a whole lot better. But then down here, you're going to have some block of code that basically tells you, here's the output from my program, Mr. Zengel. And then I'll spot check it and run it from time to time. All right? Okay? So I hope you found this little video helpful, and if you have any questions, please let me know. Have a great day.